High above Washington State, an Alaska Airlines flight with 84 people on board is making a routine trip from Everett, Washington to San Francisco when suddenly things go terrifyingly sideways. An off-duty pilot, Joseph Emerson, riding in a cockpit jump seat, attempts to shut off the airplane's engines at 31,000 feet.
At the time of the incident, Mr. Emerson did not and could not form the mental state to commit a crime.
The October incident resulting in charges for the pilot, a lawsuit for the airline, and a reignited vigor in the movement to get better mental health care for pilots.
We tend to think of pilots and others who are on the front lines of aviation as superheroes. But they're no different than you and I.
Jennifer Homendy is the chair of the National Transportation Safety Board. For months, she has loudly pushed the FAA to change its rules on what kind of mental health treatments pilots can receive. The FAA requires pilots to be medically fit to fly. Part of the screening that determines their fitness asks medical providers to notate whether pilots have a history of mental disorders of any sort, depression, anxiety, etc. Any pilot receiving treatment for those common conditions must have special clearances with a narrow list of approved drugs. Those clearances can take months to process. Some pilots tell us up to a year and a half. And in the meantime, they're benched.
You should be able to receive care and not be worried about punishment, which is losing your livelihood, losing your job.
According to his lawyers, the pilot who attempted to shut down engines mid-flight in October was suffering from a combination of stress, fatigue, and dehydration, as well as untreated anxiety and depression. Knowing he would be grounded and could lose his medical clearance and his job if he sought traditional mental health treatment, Captain Emerson tried to manage his mental health with meditation and exercise. 2 days before, he had taken a small amount of psilocybin.
I'm saddened that this situation had to happen to my husband and to these people that it affected, but I know that this has created a movement and momentum to help thousands of other pilots.
Airlines have, in many cases, strained workforces, including in the cockpit, amid a serious pilot shortage and infrastructure struggling to keep up with post-pandemic air travel.
We're seeing in some of our investigations fatigue, distraction, stress, lack of training, people who are working overtime. That all has an impact.
In lieu of changes to the rules, peer-to-peer support programs have cropped up at major airlines.
My daughter, who I was raising at the time, became very sick, and I came as close as a parent can come to losing their child. And as I went through that, I received an inordinate amount of support from the pilots in my base at that time. There became a need for me and a desire to pay it back.
Pilots Mike Doyle and Pete Gillespie volunteer for Project Wingman, American Airlines' mental health support program for pilots.
It's in a pilot's best interest to, quote, not poke the bear. Pilot doesn't almost want to know what they have because they inherently don't want to deal with the FAA side of that equation. Pilots are normal people. They go to work having had horrible things happening to them at home behind the scenes. We are, in every true sense of the word, your wingman. And the job of a wingman is to pull up alongside of you, help you with the immediate situation, and then stay with you and get you to safety.
That doesn't exist everywhere in the aviation industry. There's an entire group of general aviation pilots and others that don't have access to peer-to-peer training programs. And that is an equity issue.
Do you see an appetite from the FAA to change things?
I do. I've also had some really great conversations with the Federal Aviation Administrator, Mike Whitaker.
At the same time, your power to change things is limited.
We are a small agency, but we have a big voice. I love to say that we have a big voice because that's where our power is.
James Packard, Scripps News, Los Angeles.